Today I'm going to do a in-depth review / talk about the ETA 2472 watches that I have. These are both vintage 1960s Swiss watches. One of them costs 25 Swiss francs and the other costs 35 Swiss francs, which is about $25 or $35. There's also an ETA 2452 that I used for spare parts that also cost around 35, I think. And the thing I'm really excited about today is that this particular one, I finally did a complete rebuild with complete disassembly, cleaning, reassembly, and lubrication. And that was kind of my goal when I started out watchmaking, and I've achieved that, and it was such a great thing to achieve. I just finished it last night, like at 1 a.m. And there's a video that'll come out about that, but this video is part of my series about all of my watches. So this is the kind of in-depth. This is the perfect one to do it because this is one that I did the most work on, but. Basically, these are all 1960s Swiss watches, except for the Seiko Bellmatic there, which is Japanese. Those are each watches that I don't want to say collected, but that I own, that I enjoy, that I bought, that I wear. And with all of those watches, I want to be able to service them, make sure they're waterproof, wear them, and if they have a problem, I want to be able to repair it. So that was kind of the goal of my foray into watchmaking, and I feel like I'm at this point now where I'm really comfortable knowing that I can do that myself. And the channel, I set up the channel to kind of share that with people. It's only been a few months since I started, but I would say compared to someone else who's starting watchmaking, it's taken me much longer than it would take a normal person because I'm doing this whole video thing too. And the video thing, I probably spend 95% of my time behind the scenes working on the video system more so than I do watchmaking. But the reason for the video is because I'm also a person who professionally is a video maker, filmmaker, visual effects artist. So that's like the world that I come from, and it kind of ties into my work. And that's also my excuse for doing it, even though a few months ago I wasn't quote unquote a watchmaker. Not that I am now. Okay. Anyway, too much talk. The cool thing about these watches are. Oh, the other thing is there's already like a playlist on this channel with 20 hours or more of video about these getting to this point. But the how to start. Okay, first thing first. I couldn't have learned any of this or done any of this without YouTube and without a couple of resources. One is Alex from the Reddit. He's the moderator on Reddit's Our Watch Repair channel. This is him, and this is from a video about lubricating these jewels, the balance jewel and the balance fork. Anyway. The balance jewels are these ones that are set in a little spring setting. It has a little gold circle around it, or oval. So that's complicated to lubricate. And in order to get to the point of being able to lubricate those, somebody has to tell you. So Alex has a channel which is called It's About Time, and it's just lessons for people who are learning watchmaking. And I'll just scan through this to show you how important that is. So this is the little setting for that jewel. It pops open. See this little window down here, or this retainer pops open, and then you can pull out the jewel. And then you can clean the jewel, and then you have to re-lubricate it. So Relubricating it means getting it clean and then putting a little drop of oil in the center, and then getting that drop of oil the right size, and then putting it back in the setting. And the other thing that this video talks about is how to lubricate these pallet gear feet, which you do by putting a drop of oil on this pallet stone and then advancing the movement 5 gear settings and then doing another drop, etc. So all of that stuff is like key to it's key to servicing a watch, and it just I guess you could read it in a book, but YouTube is a fun way to learn it, and that's how I learned it. So I wanted to give Alex a big thank you for that. And then the other thing for the ETA 2472 in particular, there's a website which is like a discussion group called Watch Repair Talk, and this is associated with the YouTube channel Watch Repair Channel, which is Mark Lovick's channel, in which he shows how to do various watch repair things. And I think he's kind of one of the most established and one of the most important resources on YouTube is the Watch Repair Channel. And then on this associated blog or forums, people post guides. So this guy V Watchy, who I also totally want to thank for this, he posted a guide with like 300 pictures of this ETA 2472, complete disassembly and lubrication and reassembly. So when you get into the lubrication, you get into this, there are these kind of industry standard markers of where to put the oil and what oil to use. And that was super helpful too. And V Watchy is, you can look at his bio on the Watch Repair Talk. He's a 60-year-old guy in Sweden who went to all the trouble to do that. And he's also a computer programmer. And I just noticed that because I'm also into that. And it made me feel good about like when I feel like I'm a weirdo for being into mechanical watches. I mean, there's a lot of people that are kind of into both worlds, and I think there's a reason for that. Basically, one is an escape from the other, and there are interesting things about both worlds. Purely mechanical has some advantages for chilling out, or focusing on something that's real. Okay, anyway, this watch, I think I have to open it up, but I wanted to tell a little bit of the history. I bought this watch, and it came with this dial. So you can see this dial is very similar to the dial that's in the second watch. And the problem with this dial when I bought it, the watch was all scratched up, and I couldn't see through the scratched crystal if there was any problem with the dial, but there was a problem with the dial. It had some corrosion on it. And the corrosion had gone all the way through the varnish and everything down to the metal. So when I tried to clean that up, at first you're like, okay, maybe that's on the surface. So you try to clean it, and then you start digging away at the varnish. And inevitably, when you go down that path, you end up making the dial worse and worse. And so it's this, a lot of people say, don't touch a dial. And I pretty much, I kind of agree with that, but you have to take into consideration how replaceable or not it is. Because sometimes you can win, but usually you're going to lose in terms of being able to take dirt off the dial. Anyway, in this case, I went all the way down to the bare metal, because each time the wound got bigger and bigger, and then went down to the bare metal. And then I kind of convinced myself that I didn't mind it being raw aluminum. I even relumed this. You can see those giant ugly lume dots. But eventually I was like, you know what, I felt bad. I really did like that dial. I bought the watch even though it was only $25 for that dial. And then I saw in a lot of vintage spare parts for sale on Ricardo, the Swiss auction website, I saw that there was the same dial in this lot of parts. So I bought the lot of parts. It was $50 or $80, bought a couple of different lots at the same time. And I got the new dial. And then that set me on this journey of, by that time I had already done this one completely dialless. as an answer to destroying the dial. And I love this dialless thing, but I also got the dial. And then that dial, I replaced that dial with the original. The dial that came in that watch was this dial, which is branded Fleurier. Fleurier is a town in Switzerland where Fleurier Parmigiani, there's a watch company. I think they make the, what do you call it? Panerai watches there. Anyway, this dial was okay, but in the process of doing this dialless treatment on this first watch, I had to use, this gets a little bit esoteric and complicated, but basically this is what's called a pie pan dial. It's got this flat top and then it slopes down quite more than this one. This is kind of a normal bevel. So this pie pan dial required a higher hands, which means that some of this gearing and stuff in the center has different heights. And I ended up needing those parts for this watch. So I couldn't just, I would like to have been able to just put this watch back together with this dial, but I had to use a lower dial to accommodate the original gears and things for the hands. Anyway, that's the story behind this. And then this was a watch that I bought. This 2452 movement is cross compatible with 2472. That's going to be in the long video if you're interested in that much detail. So that allowed me to take the balance mechanism and swap it out to that because they're compatible. And learning all that stuff in the process of playing around with these watches was really, really fun also for me. It's kind of pointless information, but I can't really explain. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to explain about the joy of actually doing the full service, I think on some level when you're starting out, you think, I'd like to be able to do that kind of like, you want to be able to do it because you have some practical reasons for wanting to do it. But the coolest thing about doing it is that in the end, I know everything, every detail about this watch movement, and watches are all kind of the same. So the thing that you learn what you didn't know, but then you also just feel this feeling of like, I know everything that goes on inside this watch. I know how the date mechanism works. I know how the setting mechanism works. I know how to diagnose problems just from looking at what the symptoms are. And that feeling of like, I know everything about that watch, and by extension, because of that, a great many other watches. That's a really cool feeling for me for some reason. Okay, so this is the movement. This is ETA 2472. You can see 2472 is written underneath the balance wheel there. 2472. And I just recently, I wanted to do a waterproof test on this. I'm not going to do that in this video, but oh, that's funny. The gasket is totally tweaked out on this. I've never seen that before. It's like, it's stretched, just popping out. Now it's back to normal shape. I don't understand that. Anyway, when that back goes on, it needs to squeeze into its into the back of, there's like a groove in the back of the case. This is just silicone grease to help that slip when you put the back on the watch You want the you want the rubber to slide and not bind, because if it binds, it'll wrinkle and then you lose water resistance. Oh, something else I realized about this whole process of learning watch repair and why it's such a pleasure, and I think everybody who knows it and who's learning will relate to this, is that it's problem solving. It's just nonstop problem solving, and I think that's really ultimately the pleasure of it for me. That relates to my personality and my career. The joy of problem solving is probably one of the greatest human joys there is. And so I was trying to distinguish between why I like watchmaking, but why I also don't like. I'm fascinated by the really high-end watches, but the real attraction for me is the problem solving aspect of watchmaking, and then that became a path down this road of you start to appreciate the high-end watches because you're appreciating the low-end watch that you're doing the problem solving with, but those are completely different angles on watches. Like, watches are expensive pieces of jewelry for some people that they would never touch, and they should never touch and never open or mess with, because the jewelry aspect of it makes it so valuable that it'd be foolish to mess around with it. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's just an opportunity to indulge in this pleasure of problem solving. So for me, it's much more from the problem solving point of view. But because I live in Switzerland, I'm interested in the history of it and what's going on now. And then that's starting to lead me down the path of being interested in high-end watch design and everything associated with that, including the questions of like the ethics around the huge amounts of money that people spend on them. But just want to show that. I think I wanted to keep these videos down to 20 minutes. There's a lot more to be said about this watch. This was really just to cover the kind of in-depth talk about each watch that I own and show the movement, talk about the movement. And I think that's done for this guy. Oh, the other thing is this bracelet is a $10 bracelet from China, AliExpress, stainless steel. Obviously, it's kind of a copy of a Rolex Jubilee. I don't love this bracelet because it's a copy of a Jubilee. That's one of the reasons I don't like it. But but it's practical and it's steel and it was cheap. I'll put something on the screen that shows the price. I think it was like $10. And then the other thing about these bracelets, this watch also has a kind of oyster style. The oyster style bracelet, I like those even if they're quote unquote copies of Rolex, because I'm not sure that actually was a Rolex, even though it's referred to as oyster. It's very common in a lot of different watch brands and has been for 50 years. So I prefer oyster bands. I think they're more working class, less kind of fancy. But I was just interested in the prices. The other thing is, like, when you buy a band like this and it's $10 essentially, 18 I think is the highest price I paid for one of these stainless steel bracelets from China. I've compared it with, I have a whole generation of Rolex Jubilee bracelets with my Rolex that I have, and there's just not a huge difference. So it's a reminder of the premium that you pay for even something as simple as a strap or a bracelet when you buy the big brands. And I don't have anything against that. It's just amazing. Like, a new Rolex bracelet like this could cost $1,000 or more, and almost the same thing as $10 from China. So that also says a lot about China has changed so much in the past 20 years in terms of their capabilities, in terms of manufacturing things that are well made and precise. Okay, so that's it. Oh, there's a whole nother story about this, the Biba Precision logo. I like it because it says precision, but Biba was also, Bernard Dons made this as like an in-house custom brand or something. And there's this whole rabbit hole of Bernard Dons, who is a watchmaker family for many years. And there's some history to that. And that's also kind of in some of these other videos about the lot of spare watch parts that I bought. And that's another rabbit hole that I kind of enjoy going down, but I'll save that for later. Anyway, thanks a lot. If you watch this video, I really appreciate it. If you like it and subscribe, that's great. There's lots of other interesting things on my channel I hope that you enjoy, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks again.